Let's head to Spain now, where the authorities have opened a temporary morgue in a convention centre as the death toll from the flooding rises above 200, making this Europe's worst weather disaster in 5 decades. Rescuers say 205 people are dead, but a minister earlier said dozens and dozens were still missing as rescuers battled to reach areas still cut off by floodwaters. Emergency teams are struggling to restore basic services days after the floods, which caused widespread devastation. Another 500 military personnel have today joined the search and clean-up operations. The Valencia region was hit by an entire year's worth of rainfall in just a few hours. It triggered flash floods and swollen rivers. Many roads, bridges and rail tracks have also been destroyed, while power and internet continues to be disrupted. From Valencia, Bethany Bell reports.
The scale of these floods is devastating. This is the worst natural disaster in Spain's recent history. Volunteers are out in force, walking long distances to help with the clean-up. At a food distribution centre in the town of Aldaya, people are donating supplies. That's where we met Juan, a local English teacher. He says the tragedy here is overwhelming.
People that are not here have gone through a terrible agony until the time that, they passed away. And anger, because it's outrageous that, our local government didn't do anything about it, knowing they well knew that, this was coming, and did nothing about it.
Volunteers and officials have provided water, nappies, bread and other food. Many of the towns around here don't have running water and supermarkets aren't getting deliveries. So donations like these are very important. And volunteers have come out in force to try and help. People are queuing up for supplies. Augustin says the ground floor flat where he lived with his wife and 2 children was totally flooded. They've had to move in with his parents.
We have a 10-month-old baby, so we came here for milk, nappies, for our baby mainly.
So many people are still unaccounted for. Augustin told me the army is searching for several people believed to be dead in a garage next to his parents' home. The death toll just keeps on rising. Bethany Bell, BBC News, Valencia.
Well, let's go live to our correspondent Nikki Schiller, who's there also in Valencia. And Nikki, horrific scenes. Just give me a sense of what it is like where you are now.
Yes, Matthew, so I am in the city centre of Valencia, but the bit that has been hit, and you can see there is a mass operation. If you turn the camera around, you'll see that there is a JCB that has just arrived, and you can see the piles of rubbish that are on the sides of the streets. If you walk up with me, I'll show you what's going on, because throughout the day it's been really heartwarming, because thousands of volunteers have come into this part of the city from the main city centre, because about 5 kilometres away from here you wouldn't know there's been a flood, but it's a bank holiday here in Spain, so lots of people went to hardware stores, got buckets, got spades, got brushes. Indeed, I spoke to one woman who said the shop that she went to had completely sold out, and so they made her one out of a piece of piping and some foam at the bottom, because she was so desperate to come here and help. And there has been such a community effort, and what they've been doing is moving the rubbish that is here out of the streets, and we've got the forklift here which is going to start moving some of this stuff and get it out of the area, because this whole area, Matthew, has been devastated. There were cars tossed all over these roads. Indeed, that further down you might just be able to see right at the end there are still cars here that haven't been moved, but throughout the day they've been moving cars, using the JCBs to get them out. The volunteers have been using their brushes to try and get the street a little bit clean. Yes. But you can also see the mud is everywhere. It is literally here. You can see I'm covered in it. Everyone who's here is covered in it, Matthew.
Nikki, tell me a little more about the search for more bodies, because we've heard officials really clear that they think dozens and dozens of people still potentially are to be found.
Yeah, so it's a clear up here, but in the parts of the country that are so remote they haven't been able to get into, that is the big concern, because you saw the pictures earlier in the week of bridges that have been washed away, roads that have boulders on them and train lines that have been blocked. So the authorities are struggling to get into those towns and villages. They are using the military, an extra 500 soldiers joining the already 1,200 that are trying to actually repair the roads so they can get in there, because at the moment the only way to get in there is airlifting people out, which is fine when you know they are alive, but as we've seen, people have been stuck in their cars and their homes, and the fear is from the authorities when they get into those remote areas that they haven't been able to access at the moment, they are sadly going to find more people that have died, which will mean that the death toll will rise in this disaster, which is the worst in Spanish history since 1973.
And Nikki, there have been more flood warnings in different areas today as well, hasn't there?
Yeah, there have been. So there was a red alert in one area of the country, Huelva, but that has been downgraded now to an amber alert. But there was a lot of concern that there was going to be torrential rain there. And there are other areas that have got these alerts on at the moment. Here in the city centre last night, it rained and it just made the mud much worse. So the authorities really worried about those weather forecasts, because as you can imagine, if you have more rain on top of what is already happened, then there could be the potential for even more flooding.
And just a final thought, Nikki, because with all of what you've described, they're also trying to restore power to so many areas still disrupted, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So this area that I am in, about a kilometre up the road, there is no power at all. Mobile phone signal, very poor. And so they haven't been able to cook a hot meal in 3 days. They haven't been able to have, say, a hot shower. And what the authorities are doing here to help with that is they brought a chef in who is going to be cooking hot food at the local church here so that people can get a hot meal. But also people have been bringing supplies, water, food and baby clothes to that church so they can give them to the people in need here, Matthew.
Nikki, thanks so much.